So, with that being said, let's take my picks and let's throw them in a bracket. But before we do that, I just want to revisit what we gave you and projected here on the Joel Klatt Show in November. So let's go back to my November bracket, and this was the projection that I had in the November bracket. So we take a look at it, and I had Oregon as the 1 seed. I had Georgia as the 2 seed, Clemson as the 3 seed, and BYU as the 4. So that's obviously going to change because they're not even playing for the Big 12 title. Now at the 5, I had Ohio State. We'll see. Texas I had at 6. 7 was Penn State. 8 was Notre Dame. 9 was Tennessee. At 10, I had Alabama. 11, Miami. They're probably going to be out. And 12, Boise State. And I think that seed is absolutely going to change. So here's what we're going to do. Let's move into the Joel Klatt Show projected college football bracket based on the picks that I just gave you right here on this picks episode of the program. Let's start with this. Let's go with the champs first, and let's place them in the bracket. The number 1 overall seed is going to be, in my estimation, Oregon. With a win on Saturday in the Big Ten championship game, Oregon would be number 1. I've got Texas winning the SEC, and Texas would be the 2 seed. They're slotted in there, and there's the Texas Longhorns. Now it gets a little bit interesting because, remember, I picked Clemson to beat SMU, which means that the next highest ranked team that I have winning and winning a conference is Boise State at number 3. So Boise would be the 3 seed because I've got Arizona State winning the Big 12 and not passing Boise in the rankings. I don't think that they're going to pass Boise. So in the event that Clemson wins, which I have them winning, Boise's going to be the 3 seed, not the 4. They're going to get a bye. They'll be the 3 seed, and Arizona State will be the 4 seed and get a bye because guess who won't pass them in their college football playoff berth? Clemson. So Clemson would be the 5th champion, and I believe they would be the 12 seed. They would be the team that's included in this playoff. They played themselves into this playoff, and Clemson would be the 12 seed. Again, based on my picks in the conference championship games. There's the 5 champions. So if that were to happen, let's start to think about where would the committee go with the rankings after that, okay? And here's where I think that they would land. The next highest ranked team would likely be the number 3 ranked team in the country and the number 5 seed, Notre Dame. If this happens and Texas wins and Oregon beats Penn State will fall and Notre Dame will be the highest ranked team left, and they will get that coveted 5 seed. I believe they would host Clemson, and they would face Arizona State in their second round game. Now we get to this combination of like, how are we going to rank the next 4? And before I put them up, I'm just going to tell you, like, here's the next 4 teams that I think that the committee is going to have to rank: Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, and Tennessee. Now, in this case, Georgia would have 3 losses. Ohio State would have a win against Penn State, and Georgia would have a win against Tennessee. So this is the way I think it would go. I think that they would rank them Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Tennessee. That means that Ohio State is the 6th seed and hosting, and they would be hosting a first-round playoff game. I think that then the next seed is the 7 seed, which is Georgia. I think that they would be ranked higher than Penn State and Tennessee. I think the next highest-ranked team would be Penn State because you would still give them a home playoff game. So Penn State would be number 8, and the 9 seed would be Tennessee. That's how I think that they would rank those teams. Again, Georgia would have the 3 losses now. Now, could you make an argument that they would flip Ohio State and Georgia? Maybe, but they would definitely be, Ohio State and Georgia would definitely be above Penn State and Tennessee. And I think that Tennessee would get ranked behind Penn State because they're not going to penalize Penn State for making it to the Big Ten championship game when Tennessee did not go to the SEC championship game. So you would reward the Nittany Lions in that respect by giving them the home game. But those two teams look like they are on a collision course to play in the first round of the college football playoff, which leaves just a couple of spots. And so here we go. The 10 seed is Indiana. They're already in, and Indiana is the 10 seed, and that leaves the last team. And here's the deal, folks. And we talked about this yesterday on the Rankings Reaction Show. We've got 1 spot, 2 teams. SMU loses to Clemson based on my picks, And then they are in an argument with Alabama for the last spot in the playoff. And I just want to revisit some of those arguments. Bama, their strength of schedule, far greater than SMU. 17th in the country versus SMU's being 75. I think that just honoring the fact that they got to their conference championship is not enough, because in this era of super conferences, not every path to a conference championship game is equal. So you've got to evaluate the path. And as I've said already on this show, and what I talked about at length yesterday in the rankings reaction, is that SMU's path was very favorable. And that's to put it lightly. They played 8 conference games. 6 of those 8 games in conference were against teams that were at or below 500 in conference play, which means that they only played 2 teams, 2, all year in conference that were above 500 ACC teams. That's just not tough enough. So in my estimation, you can't just blindly reward the fact that they were in a conference championship game because of that path. It's just far different. And then you start to think of the fact that they had just lost to Clemson in this case, because I've got Clemson in and winning the ACC championship game, which means that SMU, the 2 best teams that they would have faced all year were BYU and Clemson. Those would be their 2 losses. They wouldn't have anything close to a ranked win. They wouldn't have anything close to the wins that Alabama would have. Alabama would have 3 ranked wins at that point. They would still have a win against Georgia at that point. I think in a direct comparison that SMU is going to lose the argument to Alabama. I really do. That's why I told you yesterday in the rankings reaction that Alabama was going to be in regardless, and there they are as the 11 seed going to Columbus to face the Ohio State Buckeyes. So this is a projection based on my picks in that conference championship game weekend, and then how I think that the committee is going to seed them based on those results. A Georgia loss, a Penn State loss, an Iowa State loss. This is wild, folks. I think that it's going to be crazy, because here's what is going to be really crazy is that the biggest point of contention next Sunday night is going to be between who gets the 6 and who gets the 7 seed. I have it as Georgia behind Ohio State. Now, it could very well be flipped, and maybe they'll try to make it so that Ohio State wouldn't play Indiana. Maybe Indiana would slip behind Alabama. I'm not sure. Would you try to avoid like Georgia playing Alabama and Ohio State playing Indiana and just getting rematches in the first round? Maybe you would avoid that. But I think that the biggest point of contention will be 6 and 7. And the reason being because look who they're going to play in the second round. You're either going to get Texas, the SEC champion, based on my predictions, or Boise. So the 6 seed is highly coveted. The 5 seed, highly coveted. And that 5 seed absolutely looks like Notre Dame. The only way that Notre Dame doesn't get the 5 seed is if Penn State somehow beats Oregon or Georgia somehow beats Texas. Those teams probably would stay above Notre Dame. Certainly Oregon would, maybe Texas would. So if it goes chalk and Oregon wins and Texas wins, Notre Dame's absolutely the 5 seed. They're going to play the 12, and then they're going to get the 4, and the 4 at this point looks like it's going to be the Big 12 champion. I think it's going to be wild. It's going to be fantastic, and I'm here for it. So again, this is based on my predictions in the conference championship games. This is how I think that the committee is going to rank teams on Sunday night, and this is the playoff that I think that we're going to get come Sunday night and what we'll be talking about next Monday morning. Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you like this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.